Hey everybody, before we get started, just reminding this episode brought to our patrons like Adam DeHarp, Architect 10, Baxter G, Carlos, Dragon, Ferris, Jeremy Vasquez, Just the Fae, Jonathan Sandoval, Legendary Boss Hunter, Regent Raptor, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Robin, Sharvar, Sean Pryor, some guy named Bob, 723, and Varian the Crow, and viewers like you. If you like what we do want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon to get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies. It really helps us out. Thank you for your support, everybody. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Take FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star. Today we're tackling a big topic with a new limited SSR saber, Ibuki-douji. And if this is your first Wanted, well, where have you been the last couple of weeks? But also, on Wanted, we do like to discuss a character's real-life history or folklore, their lore with the big L in the Fate series, their mechaniques, because often that is important to people, and also their frequency of raid-ups and more. So do your nails, get comfy, and we'll get into business. But first, a note. Sorry this one is a bit late. I did not quite time out exactly when the banner would be dropping, but y'all have given us leeway in the past, speaking to our general audience, when it comes to when the banners actually come out and making the project. So this one might be a little bit lean for bits we get into in a second. I'll still be hitting all those high details, you know? And hopefully we can get to the stuff, but it was a little bit tough to put together. On the plus side, spoiler for Let's Take FGO, but I have an Ibuki now, so I can cross-reference some of this stuff, which is good, for once. Doing this research like 2 weeks ahead of time, you know, sometimes makes it hard. Anyway, let's move into the meat of today's episode. Meaty. Alright, so we'll be getting into the hows and the whys of this in the lore section, but basically, Ibuki-douji is just another name for Shuten-doji. I already have a Wanted out on Shuten. You can go back and check it out now. It's one of our older and shorter videos. It's only like 9 minutes, so this is before I really started expanding the scripts and stuff, doing extra research. But it still has a lot of the basic story structure covered, so we won't want to rehash too much of that. The short version, Shuten-doji, which can be translated to something like sake drinking boy, is a fearsome king of the Oni, responsible for a rash of kidnappings and so on, in Kyoto during the reign of Emperor Ichijo, which was during 986 to 1011. I believe the Shuten-doji myth is usually pegged to the late 980s, but not really relevant right this second. Anyway, Shuten-doji is a big deal. They are considered to be one of the strongest Oni in all Japanese folklore, and one of the 3 great yokai, along with the likes of Tammo no Mae and Otakemaru. So, recurring names you might be familiar with. Now, in most versions of the legend, the Oni are based on a castle which is built on Mount Oe, which is one of 2 mountains located near Kyoto. One of them is currently called Mount Oe, but another is named similar but has historically been Mount Oe, so, you know, some differentiations through time. But, depending on the time period and the version of the legend, their base might also be on Mount Ibuki, or Shuten might be originally from there. Now, in the versions where Shuten-doji is originally from the Mount Ibuki area, he is the child of a human woman and Yamata no Orochi, the great serpent, who has become the signature deity of Mount Ibuki, and the name Ibuki-douji can be translated as something like the boy from Mount Ibuki. Okay, you follow me there? Now, my audience, if you are clicking on this video, you probably know a bit about Orochi, but the short version comes from the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki, some of our biggest sources for Japanese mythology. The storm god Susanoo was kicked out of heaven for being a butt, and he encounters some earthly kami plagued by a great serpent, Yamata no Orochi, who possesses 8 heads and 8 forked tails, and has fir trees growing on his back, and is so large that his body covers 8 hills and 8 valleys. Just saying. Anyway, Susanoo gets Orochi fucking smashed on sake that has been folded 8,000 times. This is a joke, by the way. It is translated as 8-fold sake, but, you know. And he uses an enormous sword to hack its body into little pieces. In one of its tails, he finds the sword Ame no Murakomo, which later becomes known as the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the famous grass-cutting sword, which is one of the imperial regalia of Japan. In this version, take it that the serpent god was defeated, but was still able to move from Izumo province to Mount Ibuki to become its god. That's located in the Omi province. I think it's the Shingi prefecture now. But anyway, he can still do that despite being hacked to pieces because he is a goddamn god and not bound by our normal rules of causality. Tiamat got Chaos Conf too, and she would still be able to come back in Babylonia. Don't think about it too hard. Also, I'd love for you to look up that word I just said if you don't know what it is. There's a little research fact for you. Anyway, the fact that the both hypothetical father and son like to get smashed on booze may have lent to this particular theory about Shuten-doji's parentage. I think the one line about this is like citation needed on Wikipedia, so it could just be like an editor theory crafting. But it seems legit. Regardless of our exact origins, the childhood of this Ibuki-douji is said to be a bit of a wild and chaotic one. It's a fairly recurring element through regional variants that they are a page or acolyte at a Buddhist temple from a young age, but are usually expelled into the wilderness for committing some kind of taboo. Drinking a forbidden sake, consuming human flesh, the usual stuff. Or, just generally, being a rowdy little shit, an Oni child. At this point, once kicked out and playing up the Oni child aspect a little too much, they become an actual Oni and are then known as Shuten doji. In the Mount Ibuki regional legend, it appears that Shuten met Ibuki-douji at this point, and they both set out to cause trouble in the capital together. So there's a little bit of bond there. Fun character design note, when knocked out by Raiko's sacred sake, Shuten doji is said to revert to his true form, being 50 feet tall with different colored skin and different body parts. So a purple giantess isn't even really that weird. He also had like 15 eyes, so this is nothing. Also, I don't really have another good point to bring this up, but the image you're seeing is from a record I found in the Library of Congress website to a picture scroll about Ibuki-douji growing up in the woods, eating magic herbs, chilling with Oni. I'll link to the whole thing below, but I just wanted to throw that fun fact in there. Okay, so moving on to lore. Alright, we've established Ibuki-douji is another name for Shuten doji. In Fate, that is not to say that they are the same character, the same person, but they have the same origin. Ibuki and Shuten are both considered to be the child of Orochi, and thus are connected to dragonkind, and they have a lot of other similarities we're going to unpack a little bit here, but also they have differences. They are distinctly separate. Also, as I said, that means it's not safe to say in this context that Ibuki is simply the childhood name of Shuten, as we see with other Japanese characters and even some other servants who have different names for different parts of their legend. For instance, the difference between Kukuhen and Santanta. The best way that I can phrase this is that Ibuki-douji refers to them as a kami, a god, and then Shuten refers to them as being an oni, king of the oni, actually. And Oni-kind and Fate are a being described as a specific type of demonic entity who use magical energy. They are associated with certain attitudes and abilities. The demonic power of the Oni skill talks about some of that stuff. And it is important to note that as far back as in Tsukihime, it is defined that it is possible for people to become Oni-kind through certain taboo actions. So the fact that while there are people, beings, creatures, whatever you want to call it, who are born as Oni, there are also many, many stories of people becoming transformed to become Oni. It's important for this. Also, based on profile notes, it seems that the two can switch which aspect they're in at an unspecified interval. So it's not really an at-will thing, it seems, but it might be. It's very unclear. I believe the secret profile note is basically at a certain or uncertain time. So it's deliberately ambiguous, but they can switch. This is why there's that line in Heian-kyo where Shuten is like, hey, it's my turn now. Ibuki-douji is also classified as a bunrei, a divided spirit of Yamata no Orochi, meaning that she embodies a piece of his divinity and has a fragment of his power, but because it's only a fragment, this is probably why she is summonable, but still has a divine core recorded as a skill. As Shuten, her divinity has degraded low enough to become a lower rank of the divinity skill, only C rank. This is also important because normally it is explicitly noted that Ibuki is still a hybrid with a human, so normally your divinity would be lower, but as a divided spirit it's higher, and then it goes back down to being lower. It's funny. Ibuki embodies some of Orochi's aspects and powers as the patron deity of Mount Ibuki, and also the god of calamities and natural disasters. Being a god of calamity, that probably means that Ibuki is a potential candidate for a beast, as seen in one of Domon's, 4 plans for Heian-kyo. This doesn't really seem to go anywhere in the Heian-kyo story itself, but the word calamity is used a lot, and that has a specific meaning. Additionally, being a divided spirit is why she is able to wield the Kusanagi as her noble phantasm, though she is said to only be using a small portion of its true power. She's double hiding her power level. Orochi, as the god of Mount Ibuki, has also come up before in Fate lore. This is the reason why Mochizuki Chiyome suffers from her bloodline curse, which can take the form of manifesting Orochi. So, that's a separate character deep dive, but it's a note that's come up a couple times before. As a character, for lore stuff, Ibuki-douji is fairly important, if at least not heavily used. As a character in Lost Belt 5.5 Heian-kyo, where she is introduced, that's where her first banner happens. It's happening right now, actually. Ibuki will also be a story character in the upcoming Tunguska Sanctuary story event main interlude thing, and she also has a summer variant which happened just now, so presumably in that event she will be important to the story. I'm just going to assume. Also during Interlude Campaign 17, she has an SQ interlude. Neato. And in general, I would like to throw out some extra characterization notes. It's said that Ibuki's personality at Chaldea is said to be kind of going for Big Sister Snake. Big Sis Snake, literally. It's not the same as her personality as a god, which is what we saw in Heian-kyo. So she's apparently become fascinated with modern things and become very comfortable with the modern era. In her profile notes, it is said that Sherlock is theorizing that she may have met another heroic spirit who is very modern influenced, and this enthusiasm is carried over to Ibuki's current summoning. Her original personality can shine through when she decides to get serious, or it comes through a little bit in her initial ascension, the Sneki one. That is her juvenile form when she was freshly hatched on the mountain slopes of Mount Ibuki. So let's go into mechanics. Alrighty. In the Mechanicum section, I have to tell you that Ibuki-douji has the highest attack for sabers. Yes, still to this day. As a result, her HP is pretty low for an SSR. It's below even some SRs, though she does have a few ways to get around that we'll talk about. But yes, big attack, extra thick attack, low HP. Very common trait. And as you might expect from that big damage, she has a quick arts buster, gorilla deck with average hit counts and a high NP gain to compensate. Pretty standard stuff. Gonna do a lot of damage. Her NP is an AoE buster attack, which is but simple. You gain piercing for 1 turn, it deals damage, which ignores defensive buffs, or def buffs, I should say. Defensive buff means something different in this context. And it hits enemies with 3 turns of buster res down, starting at 20% based on overcharge. So, hypothetically, if you can get that NP to hit multiple times, you might increase the damage, but otherwise it's just one of those true damage type NPs. Her first skill is a 30 to 50% battery, extra thick battery, and also is a 20 to 40% attack up for 3 hits, 3 turns. Very fair way of doing that. If you're not using all of Ibuki's cards, you can make it last a little bit longer, but it's pretty big when it works. Second skill is a fairly simple 20 to 30% buster and defense up for 3 turns, and also gives you 10 to 20 stars. So this is one of the ways she can mitigate damage. Her third skill slaps a targeted enemy with NP seal. It gives you 30 to 50% critical up, critical damage increase, and then also extra damage to undead enemies, again for 3 turns. So both are 30 to 50. Fairly solid. For passives, you're looking at Magic Resistance A for big debuff resistance, Writing B+ to make your 1 quick card slap. Makes a lot of sense in context here. And there is a new passive, Dragonkind EX. This gives her a permanent damage cut. I believe it's 200 damage cut all the time. And also gives her a 12% buster up, like a Madness Enhancement EX, but she is a saber. So your buster cards will really hurt. And additionally, her last passive is the Divine Core of the Snake God. That gives you the extra damage from a divinity. I believe it's plus 200 or plus 250 damage. And also gives you a flat passive 20% buff removal resistance. So giving you some interesting resistance to having your offensive buffs be removed. Ibuki is fairly straightforward and is a house. She deals damage to enemies. They do not get to say no unless they have bullshit story buffs or they have a really annoying way to stack defense cut. Damage cut is not really that common, but you know. Anyway, she punches through def ups, invuls, and evades, and she will bring a lot of damage that turn. More so if you can do the classic NP-BB chain with stars, which she can generate herself. Her quick card can generate decent stars on the turn ahead, and also she can do the, star bomb with 20. Also, while it's not the most common trait, Undead is fairly popular on trash mobs and even some mini-bosses, so her bonus damage will apply to plenty of farming, which is where you will probably be using her the most. Now, for your squad, there are a lot of options here. For the time being, Merlin is one of the best. He will help fortify the fact that Ibuki doesn't have the greatest HP and defensive options. She's just got a permanent damage cut and the ability to get a 30% def up, which is alright, but there's some bigger defense ups out there. Invol's max HP increases, and healing is a great way to handle this. It also gives her more of the buffs she craves. But another key aspect is her buster res down on that NP. This pairs very well with the 6 months-ish out future support Koyanskaya of Light, who is all about the quote-unquote buster loop, basically giving buster characters either starting charge with her, targeted battery skills or the ability to generate NP when hitting with buster cards. So that generally meshes really well with Ibuki's damage output, but also Ibuki is pretty tailor-made to work with the upcoming unit, about a year out now, Koyan of Dart, as well. As, interestingly enough, Ibuki is one of the rare servants who is non-humanoid. She does not have the humanoid trait, and she has the non-hominidae trait. And of course, since Buster was so popular and will be popular again, there's a bevy of funny options out there. Try neutral supports like Waver and Reynes. You can bust out the classic Leonidas for a budget support and a tank. Any of the old standbys. Have fun, kids. Press red till they're dead. Now for CEs, you also similarly have a lot of options. Since Ibuki has a 50% battery herself, she can easily go with any of the 50% base NPCEs out there. You should be focused in all the normal areas. Consider, Golden Sumo, Aerial Drive, whatever. If you're aiming for anything, pick probably generally attack up, buster damage up, NP damage up. Maybe critical, she has a little bit of leaning that way, but that's more like an extra spice after the other damage you can get. But if you can swing it, go for it. Additionally, if you're going to pair her with somebody who can give her more battery anyway, you can also go with completely no starting NPCEs, just go hog wild with the big bonuses. Limited Zero Over, Black Grail, whatever. There are a lot of good Buster CEs to pick from, okay, guys? There's tons. Some are coming out, some are already out. Go to a CE lookup and just scroll down the effects. There's plenty. I will also warn you, though, to watch out for redundancy. There are a decent number of good Buster CEs which can give you piercing or defense ignoring. These are a bit redundant on Ibuki's NP, so you might consider using them for your other damage dealers instead, just to make sure you're getting the most for your buck. As usually when you have a passive bonus like that, that means that their other bonuses are lesser. Now for your general ascension and other stuff, unfortunately, like Shuten before her, Ibuki is going to take you to the Bone Zone! Her ascension alone will require 29 evil bones, along with a lot of booze, and several of those brand new Oni Lantern type mats. Hope you've been paying attention in your event stuff. And then each skill will require 44 bones, 10 of those Oni Lanterns, and a bunch of other stuff too, so start farming now, boys, or get out your pure prisms. It will be a little bit of a thing. Now, being a limited SSR, Ibuki does get her fair share of raid-ups. She is available right now with Pity, roll now! On Heian Kyo Banner 2. She will also show up in whatever the form of our versions of the 24 and 26 million downloads campaigns are. So she's popular enough to bring back for a couple of download campaign banners. And honestly, at the rate they're going with other banners we've got going on for the rest of the year, she might even come back again. I don't know. Also, of course, as a limited unit, she will be available and visible on all future Lucky Bag Summon campaigns at the regular times. So, I mentioned earlier, but Ibuki's going to be a bonus servant for the Tunguska event. Gives you bonus damage and bond if you're looking for places where she'll be useful, or at least extra useful. I think having the biggest attack of a saber, period, is pretty useful in its own right. But she will also have an interlude later with Interlude Campaign 17. It's a St. Court's interlude, so no skill buffs there, but still good. And that's where we are. A little bit tighter than usual, but still got some decent length. And that just means that I can get it out to you faster. I'll be seeing you in December for more Serpentine Ladies. Have fun with that one. So, it's time for me to go ahead and pack this up and get on out of here. I, too, have to go level skills, so just know that I am suffering along with you. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. Leave any comments you have in the comment section down below. You can join our Discord, which has a roll thread. Link is in the video description and on our channel page. If you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to our channel to keep getting more Wanteds and more of our regular weekly podcast, Let's Talk FGO. Our last episode involved a pretty hefty discussion of Heian Kyo. If you're down to climb with that, you can find it on our channel page now. Even if you're already subbed, make sure to ring that bell for notifications. You always know we post a new video, such as when Omega has to post one at a weird time because it's a day late. Dang. Dang you, Albert. Of course, you can also support our channel through channel memberships. Get access to membership badges and emotes usable in live streams and in the comment sections. And, like I said at the front of the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early, including this video and all other wanted videos. And it's a good time for everybody. Help support us. That's it. Okay. Good night, everybody.